False friends. More false friends between Spanish and English. There's lots of them, so let's get through some more false friends today. We're going to start with the Spanish word disgusto and the English word disgust. So when we say in Spanish that something is disgusto, we are saying that something maybe annoying, something upsetting has happened to us. An annoyance, a worry. I don't know. It could also be something shocking, something that you didn't expect to happen that has a negative impact on your psyche, on your mentality. No, that was a disgusto. No, that was an unpleasant thing that happened to you.
Oh, I can't believe you've done this.
It's not an exact translation, I wouldn't say, for every context. However, the word disgust in English is also a noun, but it's nothing to do with disgusto. The word disgust is like a reaction that people have to certain stimuli. No? So in psychology, we often talk about people's tolerance or people's lack of tolerance to disgust. Some people find things very disgusting. For example, they can't look at blood. That makes them feel sick. So disgust is this feeling when you feel like you're going to vomit, you're going to be sick because of what you're seeing or what you're smelling, no? Or what you're feeling. That's what disgust is. It's something akin to asco or repugnancia in Spanish, I suppose, something like that. We often say something is disgusting, and I suppose that's kind of like asqueroso, no? Que da asco. It's disgusting. Disgust is what we feel in those situations. Okay, the next one we're going to have a look at here is destituido in Spanish and destitute in English. Nothing at all, well, certainly not used in the same way, these two words, but I think they have a similar origin, possibly. So there's this idea of the verb destituir in Spanish, which means more often than not, the context that we see destituir in is in the world of work, no? So when somebody is removed from their job, they are fired or they are sacked. So
you're fired.
So the verb, the most common word for destituir in English would be to fire, to sack, to lay off, sometimes we say. And destituido would be, well, fired, sacked, laid off, I suppose. Replaced, maybe, if you want to be a bit more, I don't know what the word is, polite.
You're fired.
Anyway, what does destitute mean in English? Because it looks like it has something to do with destituido or destituir. Well, destitute is actually an adjective in English, and it describes someone or something when it is lacking something, when something is missing from that thing or that person, no?
I've lost everything!
So you might describe a farmer as being destitute when all of his crops, all of his fruit and vegetables all die, or they don't come to fruition. No, the harvest fails. Or you might describe a destitute situation as one where you don't have anything left. The company has been left destitute by the economic crisis. So I think there is a similar origin there. So when we think of destituir in Spanish, I think you're thinking of removing someone from something or removing something from someone, separating it, no? And when we say you are destitute in English, it's definitely this idea that you had something and you no longer have it, or it's been taken away from you in some way. So there is a similar origin, but we do not use them in any in any real way in the same context, I don't think. Okay, so the next one we're going to look at is actually an interesting one, even though it's one that most people know. So we use this word in Spanish, embarazada, and of course this word in English, embarrassed. And I'm sure that most of you, or a lot of you, will know that they don't mean the same thing. So when we say that a woman is embarazada in Spanish, está embarazada, we mean she is pregnant. No, she is with child. She is expecting a baby. But in English, when we say you are embarrassed, I am embarrassed, it's because I have done something embarrassing. I've done something, or something has happened to me which is humiliating. It
Fucking embarrassed I am right now.
makes me feel ashamed. It makes me feel embarrassed. And what's actually interesting is when you read about the origin of this word, and it doesn't seem like either one, either embarazada in Spanish or embarrassed in English, actually have a lot to do with the original word. So the origin of the word seems to come from something like a blockage, something that impedes you, a problem, something that you have to carry with you, maybe something like a carga in Spanish, no, something, or impedimento, no? So it seems like what has happened in the Spanish language is that they took this sort of religious sense of what it is to be pregnant and gave it this term embarazada, because it's sort of like, well, it's like something that you have to carry with you. It's literally something that you must bear. It's like your cross to bear. It seems like it's come from this kind of religious idea, I think, from Catholicism. And in English, what it seems that we've done is take a more humorous look at this word. So we've turned it into a humiliation. So something like you feel humiliated because other people see you. So it's possibly, well, it seems they come from the same word, they have the same origin, but yeah, we've taken two very different views of what an impediment might be, what we see as an impediment. Anyway, I don't know what more I can read into that. Let's move on to the next word, and the next word I have here is estrechar. So estrechar in Spanish and stretch in English. So the word estrechar in Spanish comes from this idea to make more narrow, because you have this adjective, of course, which is estrecho, which means narrow. And if you want to estrechar, you make it more narrow. You bring two things closer together. No, you narrow the gap. But in English, the word stretch, we don't really use it in that context. So when we stretch something, we want to make it longer. No, we want to pull it, usually, to make it thinner and longer.
Stretch him again and again. Stretch Armstrong. The return only from character. Stretch Armstrong.
There are a couple of contexts where we might use stretch and estrechar in the same context. For example, in Spanish you have this expression which is estrechar la mano, no? To stretch out your hand, to extend your hand to someone. Anyway, it seems once again, there's a similar origin, there's a similar idea, but we've taken it and we've put it into two very different uses. Anyway, let's have a look at the last one we're going to look at here. We've got the word in Spanish, which is estimado, and we've got the word in English, estimate. So this one's a little bit complicated. Basically, estimado in Spanish has two real meanings. I think that's the best way to look at this. So we've got estimado, which has a similar meaning in English. So there's estimado when you make an approximate guess about something, no?
She should look about 25 years older.
Yeah, I seen her.
An estimate is a little bit different. So an estimate is what someone will give you when they tell you approximately how much something is going to cost, something like a presupuesto in Spanish.
Well, it might be better if I explain it here. So here we have estimate, the first entry here in the English-Spanish dictionary on word reference. An estimate is a calculation, estimación o cálculo. No? So then we also have an estimate for a job, which is like a presupuesto or estimación. And then we have an estimate, someone's opinion, a mi juicio, mi opinión, bajo mi opinión. But then we also have the verb. Do not confuse it. We spell the verb the same way. To estimate, we don't pronounce it estimate. We pronounce it estimate. That is to tasar o valorar. No, to value, to give a price, to assess, to make an assessment. Also to estimate is a measurement, a guess, estimar, calcular. There are lots of other definitions of the word estimate or estimate. Estimate is a noun, estimate is a verb. Careful with the pronunciation.
Careful with the word presupuesto. So there's a couple of bonus words here. We have two different kinds of presupuesto. So we have the presupuesto that maybe a builder tells you how much something is going to cost. And that would be an estimate or a quote. No. And then we also have the presupuesto, which is the amount of money that you have to do something, and that would be a budget. Okay, so there's a couple of extra words there that I put in that have just occurred to me. Then there's the other meaning of the word estimado, and it's the formal use of the word when you address someone in a letter. So you might say estimado cliente, so it would be dear customer or something like that. Perhaps there's a third meaning here, but I think it's really, the definition would be very similar. So when we say that something is estimado, in Spanish we mean that it is much appreciated, much valued, much loved, much esteemed is the closest translation we have in English. I think we'll leave it there for today. Some interesting vocab, some interesting history, some interesting video. Subscribe, like, share. Make me more famous than I already am. Is that possible? Can we do that? Let's try.